And we are on in 10 seconds. Wow. You like that music? I like that music. Welcome if you are watching this by rebroadcast. Thank you for clicking and thank you for staying. You don't want to lose touch with this because I'm going to get right into it. It's not going to take me long to do anything, so just stay right here with me. If you are a spiritual person, but you know how to connect that spirituality with your everyday life, spirituality with your relationship, with just staying sane while you're locked up in the house, if you got to keep your spirituality while you are with the person that you are with, if you have to use your spirituality just to learn how to cook, whatever it is you got to use your spirituality for, it's for a natural purpose. So we connect our spiritual with our natural, and that brings us into that connection, not only with God, but with our everyday life. Thank you for being with me today. I am Ed Montgomery. They call me Dr. Ed, and I get the opportunity of being friends to a lot of different people, pastor, mentor, spiritual mentor, educator, founder, director. I had the opportunity of being the pastor of Abundant Life Center for Dynamic Living, Abundant Life Cathedral, a parent corporation, and all those kind of good things. And for over, oh my goodness, it'll be 40 years next year. Actually, our 40th anniversary will be next year. So it's been there for a while, and I've got some wonderful people. You'll see them clicking on and saying hi, who have walked beside me for all of these years. And I've had the opportunity to teach, and they've had the opportunity to teach me, because no teacher just strictly teaches everybody. They only, the people you walk with teach you, and you learn from them, and you learn about yourself even while walking with them. So I am so grateful that they're clicking in. This is my sanctuary. This is even before I would get to a church building and stand in a podium and preach over the pulpit or teach is what I'm going to basically will do. It all starts here with a Bible, a newspaper, and a trash can. You say, why a trash can? Because the majority of the stuff that I'm writing out needs to go into the trash. So my goal is to narrow everything down until it gets to the point that it's palatable, that it's something that can be used by people on an everyday basis, because that's what's important to me. So thank you for taking the time. After doing all this for all this 45 years, several books, When Heaven is Silent, Heaven in Your Heart and in Your Pocket too, Breaking the Spirit of Poverty. All of these were written just to be able to help people to understand their spiritual life. I've done so many things in interviews. I was thinking about the other day, we were talking about, had the opportunity to interview Vivica Fox. We had the opportunity to interview, how many of you remember Red Tails, the story of the Tuskegee Airmen? I got the opportunity to interview one of the original Tuskegee Airmen. And I actually, that interview is on my YouTube page, and I was just looking through it, and I said, wow, I got a chance to talk with so many different people from so many walks of life that have enriched my life, and I've had the opportunity to share with them. Al Jarreau was the last church. Our church was the last church Al Jarreau stepped in before he transitioned a few years ago, and Chris Walker was telling me about it. So these are things that have been a part of our lives and have helped to make ministry and strengthened us over the years. Now, here is what I have been talking about for the last 5 weeks. David and the 5 sacred stones. In other words, the story of David and Goliath, and it's so powerful. I've gotten in it, I've talked about it over the years. And that story is so powerful because it talks of courage, it talks of an underdog overcoming impossible odds. It talks of somebody who brought down a giant that seemed impossible. And I've learned so much about it even now, right? This week, last week, the last few weeks, the last month. You say, but you've been doing this for over 40 something years. I know it, but I've learned so much, so many different things. So I'm going to tell you right up front. I sat down, some people said, you know, you wait till the last minute, the last part of the broadcast to tell us what the stones are and what you're going to talk about. Well, I'm going to tell you right up front what the stones are. So take a moment, like the program, hit the like button. There you go. Let me see, what's it? What? Yep, there it is. Hit the like button. If you see that little heart button there, you can hit that heart button if you're watching this by Facebook. That heart button, you can't see it all that well. At least I can't see it all that well. You probably can. But whatever you see, hit that too also, because that gives some more algorithms to Facebook that says, hey, we like this. And not only that, but you can also type in your comments, whatever you have to say, type them in. Not only that, but you can also share. You want to share this with some people because we're going to talk about shareable things. And here we go. 5 stones. I'm not going to go back to the story too much of David and Goliath. I'll talk about it if I need to. But many of us know the story. But understand the story of David and Goliath, scripture-wise, the mentality of our mindset will make you skip over things and cause you not to see things that are there. And what I try to do is I shine a light on it and say, look at that. And you'll say, whoa, I didn't even realize that was there. And it tells us a truer story. What we see about David and Goliath and the story we actually read it and it's glossed over. And it's the story of this underdog little boy who comes up with a slingshot and he kills the giant. Wow. And we don't realize what is really behind that story. So I started it a few weeks ago and I dealt with 5 stones because what David did, the slingshot, the stones he was going to use, he put 5 stones into his shepherd's bag, his shepherd's pouch. And the reason, he said, why did if he was only going to kill the giant one time, why did he put 5 stones in there in case he missed? Think about it. So the first stone we used. Now, I'm not going to go in the order that I taught it in. I'm going to go in an order that's going to be an acronym that's going to help me remember what I taught so that it will help you remember what I said. All right, so that probably was a mouthful. But so I'm not going to go in the order that I taught it. I'm just going to go in, I'm going to come up with an acronym, and I worked on it. I'm sure you all could look at this and come up with a much better acronym than I can. But I came up with WETAP, W-E-T-A-P, WETAP. We tap on Goliath's head. We tap dance on Goliath's head. We tap dance on the army that was trying to destroy David. We tap dance on the devil's head. All of those, you can use any of them. But I came up with WETAP, W-E-T-A-P, to help me remember these 5 important things. Number one is that W, which means that we are the warrior. When David went into the battle, he went in, and there's that passage of scripture that says, the battle is the Lord's. I tell people all the time, whenever I talk about that scripture, whenever I hear it, I know we got powerful speakers and powerful preachers out there in the world, but there's nothing more powerful than the queen of contemporary gospel, and that is Miss Yolanda Adams. And whenever I hear that song, whenever I hear that phrase, I'm going to think about the battle is the Lord's. There is no pain. I'm not going to sing it. Reggie can't heal. She's the only one when I think of that. So I learned something. That word battle means war. So it means the war is the Lord's. It means the warrior, secondly, is the Lord's. So David, being the warrior, belonged to the Lord. But there's another translation that also says the warrior is the Lord. So the warrior, the Lord, was in the place of David. So when Goliath met David, Goliath also met the Lord. So inside of you is a warrior. If you pull out that stone, there comes a time that everybody has to pull out the warrior. That's stone number 1 on WeTap. And then there's E, which means endurance. There comes that time that you have to go past your limits. If you're running a marathon, if you're going to try to run a marathon for 4 miles, you got to learn to run 6 miles. You've got to learn to run past that endurance level. These are the times when you get to the point and that voice is saying give up, you got to dig way down deep and say, I'm not going to give up. That takes endurance. The endurance is in this shepherd's bag. That's one of the stones. WeTap. T, trust. I'm going to go here with trust. Trust. I put this in place of faith because many times when people think of faith, they think of, I'm going to use this stone. They think of faith in terms of trying to make my mind accept something. And if I have faith, I'm believing God that my life will be better. I'm believing God that I'm going to make some money. I'm believing God that a check is coming through the mail. I'm believing God. And then sometimes it doesn't happen that way, and we get discouraged about it. But our faith, true faith, is not making your mind accept something that someone told you it ought to be. True faith is trust. Trust in the Lord. Delight in the Lord. Commit your way to the Lord. Rest in the Lord. Trust is like you trust a parent. That you're not trying to make yourself believe that that parent has your best interest at heart. You just trust them. You're resting in the fact that whatever is going to happen, they got my back. So that's trust. So we got WeTap, warrior, endurance, trust. A, this is the 5th stone. I'm going to go to the P, the last letter in WeTap. The last letter is P. We talked this was perception. Educate yourself. We are not to divorce ourselves from science. Well, we're spiritual. We don't have nothing to do with science. Science. No, science and faith can go together. Science and religion goes together. Religion at one time used to be in the arts, but science and faith go together. Just because you have education does not mean that you leave your mind at the door of the church to go to church or to deal with God. No. Science many times uncovers the footsteps of God. So perception, how we see things, depend upon the education that we have, how much information we have fed ourselves, so that we see clearer as we have more information about things. So that's perception. Now we're at the last one for WeTap. It's WeTap. But that A word, it is affirmation. Some people use the word confession. There's a difference between a confession, slight between confession and affirmation. Affirmation is the synonym for affirmation. This is interesting. So it is a stronger word. Affirmation is a much stronger word. And affirmation means to declare something to be true. You say, well, why is this important? Because you're going to see that the world we live in is designed to try to take away from us what's in us. And if we have no affirmation, we will just keep allowing the world or the system or the systematic, the systemic things to take from us what we are. Affirmation is in this bag. I'm going to let it sit in this bag for a while so I don't knock it over. But there is a reason David used an affirmation, and it was so powerful. You have all 5 stones. You have W. You have the ability. You have tap. You have the warrior in you. The endurance of the warrior. You have trust, powerful. You have an affirmation, and you have perception. Now you say, oh yeah, I got it, I'm gone. Yeah, you can't go anywhere yet, and let me tell you why. Because you got to know how to use the affirmation. David, I've been even digging a little bit deeper, and one of the things, I'm not going to go back into my previous classes. I'm just bringing up little things that are just common, and which is so important to our world today. What happened is when David he was not a little boy. We know these are basic facts. He was not a little 10-year-old kid. And secondly, we know one of the reasons that caught his attention to get him out there with that giant was not just because he knew, hey, this is a good cause, this is something that is important, but if you read it, you'll notice that David asked the people around him at least 3 times, what do I get? Do I get paid for this? And they told him, you get paid for this. How do I get paid? You get paid the king's daughter. You get paid, they clear all your bills out. They pay all your bills. And then you get a little stimulus check. David said, say that again. You get a girl. They clear all your bills, your family, everybody. And you get a stimulus check. David said. And his brothers turned around and said, you're always into something. Get out of here. What are you doing? And David turned to his brother and said, yeah. Now, forget about them. Tell me again, what do I get? This is in the scriptures. Our minds skip over it because we never think that one of the motives of David was to get the girl, which was not purely, sensual, but it was also to get into the king's family. This whole thing about David was actually political. You're seeing the rise of a politician and how he actually got there. Oh, the history of the story. David was an armor bearer for Saul. In other words, he was one of the young guys that were up there. He clerked in the Supreme Court. David was somebody who was a kind of a lobbyist. Well, not a lobbyist, but he worked in the court of Saul. He was right up there in the echelon of power. So when it came time for him to say, hey, I'll go kill this giant, they said, okay, all right. Now, what happened was Saul was supposed to fight this giant. The king was supposed to fight this giant. But the king was the tallest person around there. That's right. All the rest of them were a little, under 6 foot. The king was Saul was over 6 foot. So the person who should have fought this giant was Saul. But Goliath was, oh my God. All the translations tell us different things about what he was and the history behind him. Some say he was 6'9", some say he was 7'5", 8 feet. Some translations, newer translations, actually tell us that Goliath was 9 feet tall. Can you imagine 9 feet tall? If I'm not mistaken, 9 feet tall means that you stretch your arm up, they throw you the basketball, 9 feet tall. David is under 6 foot, and he's going out and handling this giant. We know what David was. We know he was a slinger. That's what they were called. They were slingers. And actually the rocks that they used were flint. They were I used more of a smoother stone, but they were more of this kind of angle because it was sharper, smooth, and you can find these stones all over where they had battles in Israel, and you can also find these kind of in Europe on the ground. They used to collect them. People used to go. The young armor bearers would go out and they would find these stones and would collect them in bags whenever they would go to battle. So this was the artillery of that particular, the projectiles of that particular day. They had forceps. The doctors had instruments that could pull the stones out of the soldiers after they got hit by one of these projectiles. David was that good. He could take 5 stones, and within 5 stones, David could sling them in under 10 seconds. And each stone, once it was slung, was the strength of a projectile of a bullet coming out of a 45 caliber gun. In some cases, they clocked it at 80 miles an hour. So there was no way for Goliath to even take a shield to try to. It was almost impossible. It says that it sunk into his head, and when it sunk into his head, it evidently had to crack the skull and to sink into his forehead. This is how powerful David was, and he knew he could do it. But he wasn't stupid. He knew it might take him more than just one stone, but he wasn't going to give up. Besides, this was his time. This was his moment. So he goes out there, and when he gets there, here is what the giant says. He says, if you come to me, and you'll find this in 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 43, 45, 46, either one of those verses, because there's a whole section. And I would read it to you, but it would take too much of my time. You guys can read it, find it, you'll see it. And you might say, Dr. Ed, you're being a little ticky with this. Not really. I'm not being too ticky with this at all. The giant, it says, is sitting down, probably up under a tree, waiting on David. He wasn't standing up during this whole time. He didn't know whether the war was coming out or not. It says he looks about and he sees David. And he turns around and he makes this statement. He says, because David now has his staff and his sling in his other hand. And he says, am I a dog that you would send to me this good-looking, youth that's going to try to bring me down? And he says to David, am I a dog? And it was an interesting thing because as soon as he saw David, he disesteemed him. It says he cursed him by his gods, and it's a little G-O-D in there. However, the same name for God is Elohim, which is the same name that is used for God that created the world. This is interesting. Elohim just means gods, and it's plural. Goliath says, I curse you. He cursed him by his gods. And says, am I a dog that you would send me? And I don't want to get so deep in there, but actually Goliath used a phrase that can be translated a male prostitute. In other words, are you sending me this nice looking kid? Who do you think you are sending him to me, a man of war? And all of a sudden, we see why he said it. If you understand this one thing, here we go. that the blessing is not up in the sky trying to come in, but the blessing is within us. I want you to imagine, probably, Mel, some of you got them in them freezers. I want you to imagine some Bluebell ice cream, a full carton of Bluebell ice cream. All right? Some say, don't you tempt me, Pastor. A full carton of Bluebell ice cream. Hasn't been touched, just come right out the store. When you open up the top, you take the ice cream scooper and you scoop it out and you put it in your cup or your bowl or whatever, and you see that section is gone. How we see, this is how blessing is. It is spoken of in the Bible. We think of blessing as something that we think of our lives as being lifesavers. You know, we're a pack of lifesavers. In other words, we're life with a hole in it. And we're born with a hole inside of us. And then we go through our whole lives trying to fill up that hole inside of the lifesaver. And then we ask God to come in. God, will you come in and fill up this hole in my soul? And then we got to deal with the fact that, oh, maybe I'm not good enough for God. My life is horrible. Some of the stuff that I do, I sure don't want God to see it. And then I go to church, and then church tells me you're not good enough to, for God. You can stay in church for a while, but you're really not good enough. I don't know what God's gonna do for you because you're a life with a hole in it. You're a lifesaver, and we are trying our best to get God to do things. Hopefully God will pass by one day and say, you know what, you're a cool person, and God can catch us when we're doing some good deeds. That's not the way the spiritual life actually works. We are born, and I can teach it, but I'll be here all day long, so I'm just going to deal with it because I can deal with this affirmation. We are born with the blessing. We are born with a full carton of ice cream, nothing scooped out, because that's what a blessing is. A blessing is a full carton of ice cream that we're going to be able to use throughout our lives. Now, a curse is when somebody comes with a scooper and tries to scoop out a scoop of blessing, and they eat it and put it in their bowl and put it in their cup. And here you are with something scooped out of your Bluebell carton. And then they go back again. And we go through life complaining about why I don't have this. I don't look good. I'm not smart. I am not powerful. I don't have the clothes that I need. I don't have any money. I don't come from the best line of people. You go through life with your excuses about what you don't have because somebody has told you, you don't have what it takes. I've been with somebody, I've gone with some of the best girls, gone with some of the best guys, and you're just horrible. Look at the way you look. Look at the way you dress. Everybody's always better than you. Hook up with you, but then, hey, I'm gonna hook up with somebody else. Everybody's always better, and we find ourselves searching. And then when you have all these scoops out of you, you start doubting yourself. You have to start asking yourself the question, do I really have what it takes? Look at these holes inside of my ice cream carton. Do I have what it takes to run this company? Do I have what it takes to be the pastor of this church? Do I have what it takes to keep this family strong and powerful? Do I have what it takes to make a switch in my career at this time in life, at this age I'm at? Can I make this switch? Look at my carton. And we see our curtain as somebody who has scooped something out. That's what a curse means. You can look it up. Look, I've got concordances. If you don't believe me, you can look it up yourself. It's not a hard thing. The word curse means to scoop out. And that's what Goliath said to David. How dare they send somebody like you to fight with somebody like me? He said, when I get through with you, by my God, I will feed your carcass to the beasts of the field. I will feed your carcass to the birds of the air. I will feed you to all of the animals, the lions and the tigers and the bears. Come on. Oh my. Goliath said, when I get through with you, tearing you limb by limb, you're nothing. You're nobody. I'm a warrior. You're a youth. I can fight. You can't fight. Goliath was getting into his head. How many times have you allowed things to get into your head? When you're about to go into, you're about to make a presentation at a corporation and you allow the doubt to get into your head. How many times? And look at this. This is what you call systemic. That's why they call it systemic racism, because it's in so many different areas. Systemic racism is to remind a group of people or remind people of color, black, brown people, that they are slightly below the status quo, that they are, quote, other, unquote. It's designed not to be able to always, you say, well, my friends say, well, I've never said that you were less than. I never treated you any differently. But the system has been, is designed to make you feel that you're less than. You're driving along, you're dealing with the police, but when one of your friends who happen to be white is in the car with you, they felt the police was fine until they see how the police treat you when you drive. And they'll turn around and say, man, girl, I never thought. There is a difference. Because it's in the system. People say, well, the system is broken. No, the system is not broke. It's just not designed for you. That's why they're protesting. That's why you need an affirmation. An affirmation is a declaration. It is a protest. And here is what David did. David flipped Goliath's curse into an affirmation, not of a blessing, but of the blessing that was already in him. In so many words, he told Goliath, you ain't scooping this out. You're not scooping this out. Now stay with me, because before I close this today, I'm going to tell you the number one thing you should never do. And if you do it, it'll mess you up for a long period of time in your life. I'm going to tell you, when you're dealing with affirmations, when you're dealing, it is a phrase you should never use, something you should never do to get out of your life. And I'm going to tell you that toward the end of this broadcast. You say, you're going to make me, yeah, I'm going to make you watch this thing all the way to the end, because you need to watch it. It's teaching you something. This is our spirituality. And so David turns around and he says, you come to me with swords and javelins and spears. David says, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts. He didn't say I come to you in the name of Elohim here, because Goliath had already used Elohim. Goliath said, from my perspective, you nothing. That's the way it was. But this thing right here is a little different. David says, I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts. Now, one thing, see, when you have and this, let me finish that last. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole yet. He says, I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts. He says, and when I get through with you, he flips the affirmation on Goliath. He says, I will take your head. I know this is gruesome. I'm cutting your head off. I'm going to take you. I will give your carcass, and not just yours, but the whole army that you are representing, to the beast of the field and to the fowl of the air. He flips the script and tells Goliath what he will do to him. And he says, and I am coming in the name of the Lord of hosts. In other words, I'm coming to you in the power, not only of my God as I see my God, but I'm coming to you in the name of the God of my family, of my mom and daddy, of my grandmama and granddaddy, of my great-grandmama and great-granddaddy. I'm coming to you in the name of the God of my ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, all the power of the ancestors. You know, they used to, I'll never forget, someone once told me, we were teaching, and I was standing, we stand on the shoulders of Dr. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and Rosa Parks and the people who have come before us in civil rights movements. And I'll never forget somebody, one of the pastors who was not a pastor of color, said, well, it was kind of forced upon America, that the civil rights movement was pushed upon America. It was not really the timing of God yet. If you all had just waited a little bit longer, God would have opened the door. And I said, wait. I said, what? Well, if you all had waited longer and Dr. King forced, it was. I said, well, who do you think Dr. King was? And this was a well-known, if I told you who he was, you would say, what? Oh my God. You would never go there. He said, well, we believe Dr. King was a civil rights, but he was not a prophet. I said, you don't believe he was a prophet? You don't believe that he was? Well, I believe that he had believed in God, but also he believed in.
Okay. I found this on the web. Dr. King was a civil rights.
Oh, listen at Siri. Better be careful what you say, because Siri's getting ready to tell you who it was. And he says, if he had waited, God would have opened the door for black people ultimately. And I said, see, that's my point right there. That we don't wait. That's not the point. We're not waiting on God to work through you. I firmly believe our churches. Anyway, don't get me started down that road. But they were saying that that's not scriptural about ancestors, and that's demonic work. I said, no, wait a minute. That's not any demonic work. When I say we stand on the shoulders of our ancestors, what that means, we stand on the strength. I said, that's science. Well, we don't agree with science. Science, it's epigenetics. Do you know your great-grandmother, when she had your grandmother, she passed on something genetically to your grandmother. Your grandmother and added to the great-grandmother what was passed epigenetics to the mother. And so the mother carried what the grandmother had and the great-grandmother had and passed it on to you. And what you have that your mother had, that your grandmother had, your great-grandmother, you pass it on to your daughter and your son. These things, it's genetics. And there are some things that genetically we don't want to keep. Well, you don't have to keep, but you keep the good things that you have. We stand on the shoulders of people who have gone through hell in order, that tells us to strengthen us so that we can look back and realize that they went through it. They didn't see the victory, but we can see the victory. Many of them made sure we could get into the promised land. Don't get me started here. We stand on the shoulders of these strong people. Ladies, women, you stand on the shoulders of strong black women. You stand on the shoulders of women who are not allowed to say things just a few generations ago, or to talk. But you stand on those shoulders, and it allows you to open up your mouth and to crack those glass ceilings and to slam those ceilings to be able to go forward. That's what God has done in your life. Those voting rights acts, all those things would have never happened if somebody had not decided to flip that affirmation and say, we will do this. If somebody had not in the name of, see, in the name of does not mean, well, I come in the name of God, I come in the name of the Lord and stand in the name of the Lord. You don't have to say in the name of the Lord. Name means character. Name means act like. Name means I am like. Name means to be like. When I come here, when I shake the gates of this in protest, I am coming in the name of the Lord. My right hand is justice, and my right hand is justice, and my left hand is righteousness. I come in the name of the Lord. When I come in the name of the Lord, you're looking at me as, oh yeah, you may not like it, but that's the way it is. God has finally come down. The word has become flesh. When you hear me cry against injustice, that's the voice of God. And this is what David said to Goliath. He says, I come in the name of the Lord of hosts, in the name of the Lord of my ancestors. Hosts. God comes with a host. What do you mean? A cloud. Hebrews chapter 12 said, and seeing that we're encompassed, verse 1, by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every sin and weight that doth so easily beset us, looking unto Jesus, who is the author and the finisher of our faith. In other words, God has a cloud of witnesses behind him. We have our ancestors behind us that are watching us and giving us strength, and has already infused it through epigenetics into our bodies, our emotions, our mind. We are already blessed. You just don't ever allow people to curse you and tell you who you are not, what you cannot be, what you will never be. Listen, I've gone through it. I've had people tell us about our church and tell us, well, your church will never be this because you're not like other people. Well, if you bring some celebrities in, then you can pack your church out. And I understand it. I understand, you bring a celebrity in and everybody fills the seats. Why? Because they're looking for a substantial word? Or are they just looking for the celebrity? They don't come back the next week. I remember when Kanye came. Well, I'm not going to even go down that road. But I know one thing. This whole pandemic, this whole coronavirus is teaching us that it's about the substance that's going to remain. Is everybody showing up at Line on Church? No. Is everybody packing in online at church? No. Listen, we have hundreds, and it goes into the thousands of people that watch us by our rebroadcast. That's interesting. We know at Sunday morning 10:30, there's a lot of people on doing their thing. We're not as much as concerned about that, other than the fact that we know that after we're off, hundreds of people began to click on. They don't want to be seen that they're watching us. And by the way, if you are new, type in new. Or if you're watching this for the first time, type in first time. Yay! We're going to cheer for you. Just type in first time. New. I love it. And if you're enjoying this, type in enjoying this. And so I can get connected with you. And for those, and also some of you are, anyway. Let me keep on going. David comes in the name of the Lord, and here's what he says. Here's the affirmation. I will cut off your head. Horrible. That tells us he wasn't no 10-year-old boy. Okay? He's about in his 20s. I will lay your carcass out. And he's not just talking to Goliath. It says he spoke to the armies. This one shepherd guy is talking to an entire army. Because he knew Goliath represented the army. He says, I will lay your carcass out. And I will succeed. He refused. He came in the name. He came in the character. He came as if God was standing. He told Goliath, brother man, when you look at me, you looking at God. You better take your selfie if you want. But when you looking at me, you are looking at God. This is God coming at you. There's no way you are going to get out of this situation. Whew. This is what affirmation does. And I'm going to tell you in just a moment what never to use when you're writing these things, what phrase to never use. These affirmations. We have an affirmation, and understand what these affirmations do. People say, oh, well, you know, if you confess with your mouth the Lord Jesus Christ and believe in your heart that God is raised from the dead, thou shalt be saved. And most people, when we think of the word saved, we think of it means to be saved, so I won't go to hell, so I can go to heaven. Well, if you confess with your mouth the Lord Jesus Christ and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, thou shalt be saved. And so repeat this. So you're confessing with your mouth, and I believe in my heart, and I'm saved. Saved to do what? Well, I'm saved to go to heaven. Well, that word saved is so much more. It says thou shalt be saved. Actually, the word saved means thou shalt be healed. It says thou shalt be emotionally brought back together. It says thou shalt be prosperous. Thou shalt be in abundance. It actually more so it means healed. Saved means healed. And it means something that is done over time. One of the confessions or the affirmation that we've been using for years is it says we would join hands at that particular. We wouldn't join hands now with that coronavirus, but we would join hands and we said, the hand I hold is one of a kind. It belongs to a person that cannot be duplicated. I respect my brother and my sister. Then we would say, I am one of a kind. See, this is a good one. I cannot be duplicated. Therefore, I respect myself. Then we would say, God sent me into this planet for a reason, and I cannot leave until I complete my mission. Then we would say, God has given me all of the tools, talents, and tools that I need in order to succeed. Then we would make this statement: I am prosperous, I am healed, I am sound of mind, I am becoming all that I can possibly be. Then we would go on into some more, a few more things. But that was an affirmation. Then at the end of it's funny, we had these affirmations at church. All churches basically have affirmations. And it's interesting, we say these things week after week, and we don't realize how much are they strengthening us. You say, oh, well, that stuff doesn't work. I said it and nothing happened to me. It doesn't work when you say it one time. It has to become part of your life. It has to be something that you speak every day. The affirmation gets into your genes, into your neural pathways. It is something that you say over time until, like the last one we say is, here we go. What is it? I shall not die, but live to declare the works of the Lord. For he has come that we might have life and have it more, what? Abundantly. I shall not die. You keep saying, I shall not die, week after week for a month. That's 4 times a week. for a year. That's 52 times a year. For 10 years, that's 520 times. 40 years. No, I'd say about 30 years. That's how long it took. 520, 510, 15, 1,560 times. But it's inbred in you, and it goes into exponential. I shall not die, but live. See, that's telling me my time is up. But listen, I'm getting ready to tell you something you should never do when you're writing these affirmations, because you can write your own. And I'm going to tell you something you never do. But first of all, let me say this. Take a moment and prepare a gift. Prepare an offering. I know people tithe. People will take 10% of what God has blessed them with. People say, I don't believe it. Why are people doing that? Listen, during this time, people will fall off. There's no sense in fighting with people about giving. These are people who hear this message and who hear and say, you know what? Bam. That's got my affirmation. I'm ready to go here. I know exactly what I want to do. And here's how you get. You go to myalc.org. myalc.org. You can go use your app and you can hit the donate button. Even on your MyALC, the donate button. You'll see little sections that you can type it in. It's just so easy. Use your debit card, use your credit card. It is so easy. And out of your blessing, you'll be able to continue to bless others. See, we have to deal with attitude. If we can get our attitude straight, we can take our altitude to another level. Get your attitude straight, then take your altitude up. And then thirdly, you can give, let me say this also. Well, now let me go ahead and get into this. You can give by text. You can text to donate. And that text number is on your screen. It's 713-742-2035. It's 713-742-2035. And what you do is you just put the amount in the message section, 5, 10, 20, 7, 8, whatever, 100, whatever you want to put in there, whichever you feel is what you want to share. You can do that right here, right now. And not only that, but there are people who give by mail. Listen, that P.O. Box, Abundant Life Cathedral, it's Ed Montgomery, P.O. Box 772-300, Houston, Texas, 77215. I'm going to say it again because I know you can go backwards on your little slide. Ed Montgomery or Abundant Life Cathedral. You can type it in there. It'll get to the P.O. Box. That address is P.O. Box 772-300, Houston, Texas, 77215. Listen, your generosity is keeping this thing going week after week after week. And you can see by the comments, people are being blessed. Now, I'm getting ready to tell you what you never do. What you never do when you're writing these affirmations. The most powerful affirmation you will always be able to use is when you say, I will, or I am. I am. We always use, I am prosperous. I am healed. I am sound of mind. I am stable in my emotions. Never put a word after I am that you don't want in your life. Put it this way. You know what? I'm just so poor. I am just so poor. Never use the word poor after I am. I am is God's name. I am so sick. I am is God's name. whatever it is that you want. I am is the name of God, and that's what God is in your life right there. I am healed. I am sound of mind. So now you got that. You can write your own affirmation. I don't have time to teach it to you today. It ought to be a class, but you can write it. Listen, thank you for being such a fantastic blessing to our ministry, but to ourselves. Listen, I believe as the church, we can rise up now and speak to the world and say to the world, listen, it's time to crush this coronavirus and to push it down. Wear your mask, ladies and gentlemen. I know people want to go to church. I know we want to do, and there's some that are there. There's some that are going and doing their thing, but hopefully they're doing their social distancing and everything. But this is a time right now that we got to band together and realize that we can crush this coronavirus down. We got to be able to, yes sir, we got to be able to help each other and help our world, help our scientists, and help each other crush this thing down. Look, when you get up in the morning, don't you get me started. When you get up in the morning, you got to realize how blessed you are. Don't wait for that blessing to come down from the sky. You got to realize how blessed you are on the inside of your life. Don't let nobody curse you. You got to realize I am blessed. And you got to realize, just like David did, that my ancestors and what I've gone through, there are testimonies there. That's why you have testimony. Testimony is good for you. Testimonies let you know that you've been brought you out on the other side. How many of you out there right now got a test right now? You got a testimony, and you can say, God has brought me out on the other side. How many of you know that? Yeah? Yeah? How many of you got a testimony out there? Oh, I know who that is. I'm going to tell you, you know who's playing that? That's Brother Mark Taylor. That's Chris Black. That's Ernest Walker. And Rick Marcel. I'm directing them and making them. And that's called Shout Jam. We were going to put it on our next album coming out. But you remember that sound good on it? Yep. But I thought I'd add a little bit to you and remind you, you got a testimony. You got to tell that testimony. And you got to remember that the Lord has brought you this far. And if God has brought you this far, He is not going to leave you alone and take it the rest of the way. You got some, I know we're dealing with that coronavirus, but let me tell you something. You got a testimony. What's your testimony? How far has God brought you? How far has God kept you? What has God done for you? Oh, you hear that? Yes, I hear that thunder going, but that's all right. I'm blessed. I'm blessed, not cursed. Yeah. I'm blessed, not cursed. See, let me tell you why I did that. Because I knew it was going to bring the first lady in here, and she didn't come in here because she heard that shout music. So listen, go on and enjoy it. Dance a little bit. Thank God for your life. Thank God that you're blessed. And I'll see you on the other side of this thing. God bless you. Come on, let me hear it. Yeah. Yeah. Let me hear it. Turn it up. Hey. See, I'm part teacher, part educator, but also I got